What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View podcast. Today, I am joined by just a badass in every sense of the word. She is a former OVW Women's Champion. She is currently on the comeback trail after recovering from not one, but two collarbone injuries. Please welcome to the show, Miss Leela Feist. Leela, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Hey, I've got you on the other side of the camera despite all of our technical difficulties, so I couldn't be doing better.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
You're a busy lady, so we're just going to jump right into this. You're not what some might call a lifer. You didn't grow up in the mirror practicing your entrance, things like that. You kind of broke into the business a little bit later in life. What kind of led to that decision to join professional wrestling in this traveling circus?
Believe it or not, I feel as though most of my adult life has just been a series of opportunities that have been presented to me, and wrestling was no different. I knew that I never wanted to have a regular 9 to 5. I had a mother and a father who were both in the entertainment industry in some aspect. And I I didn't want to go to college. My mother, was like, well, you have to do something with your life. I went to school for like my cosmetology license, but even throughout all of that, I was training in dance. Did dance for a while, did some really cool tours, went on tour with Stevie Aoki, Waka Flocka, all that good stuff. And, fast forward, I was living in Las Vegas, teaching dance, being a professional dancer, and doing choreography and things like that. But COVID hit, which changed the lives of a lot of people, obviously.
Right.
And I was no different. And because I didn't have a regular job, I didn't get any like government money. I was kind of out on my own. And so I decided to travel. And through that travel, I decided to make a TikTok and do the whole car life thing. So I did that for about 8 months before I ended up in good old Indiana, which is where I am now. And through mutual acquaintances, someone introduced me to my coach. They were like, oh, well, have you ever thought about wrestling before? And I was like, not really. And so then I met Jake Oman, and he's the one who ended up training me. And I did not anticipate falling in love with wrestling as deeply as I did.
We love a good happy accident here on the Fans View. So, you kind of touched on it a little bit. You started training in late 2022, and you were in the ring by 2023. That's a quick progression, even for the most talented of talents. Did you realize early on that you maybe kind of have a natural feel for this thing?
I did not. Whenever my coach would tell me like, oh, you're actually picking up on this really well, you'd be surprised at, it was because I think just all the years of dance that the translation of movement was a little bit easier for me. Plus, I've always been athletic. I was into all kinds of sports growing up. So, I mean, also when I want something, I go for it, balls to the wall. I was in the dojo, I would say at least 6 hours a day for about 3 to 4 days a week, because I would come early, train one-on-one. I would stay for advanced training. I would stay for beginners training. So I was there all the time, taking advantage of every single opportunity that I possibly could.
Yeah, I definitely you don't get as good as you've gotten as fast as you've gotten there without being a gym rat. So that tracks. That makes a lot of sense. Um, when you look back now at the first few months of your training, what would you say was the hardest thing for you to learn transitioning, like you said, from your dance background, to professional wrestling?
Hmm. I don't think there was any moves specifically that I could name. However, I do recall being a beginner and watching the advanced students do things, and it was just the speed in which they did them, I suppose, and how
Right.
many like a string of moves they could put together. And I could kind of relate it to dance in the sense of like choreography And
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, like other martial arts, when you learn a certain move, you kind of start to know where things are placed and why. And
Right.
that's when things started to click for me. It wasn't just about the actual movement, it was about the why we're doing what we're doing. And that's when I had my kind of aha moment.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you said that because that kind of piggybacks into my next question. Obviously, when people talk about, the training horror stories, and when I broke into the business, it's the bumps, it's the conditioning, it's the Hindu squats, it's the ropes. What's something that maybe fans don't understand that's incredibly difficult, especially when you're first starting out?
Jeez. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I would say everything because as someone who did not grow up watching wrestling or love wrestling from a very young age, I was definitely one of those people. I know people are going to be like, oh my God, no, Leela, no. I thought it was all BS. I thought it was fake. I was like, nah, this is. So when I started training, I was like, oh my.
Yeah. You learn real quick you can't fake gravity.
Well, on day one, he had me run the ropes. And I just remember thinking, oh, this is going to be so much fun. It looks like so much fun. The instant my back hit those, because people don't realize, I mean, it's literally um, the
Cable.
cables.
Yeah.
Yeah, those really thick cables that are beneath that. And I had a bruise about this big on my back. I remember waking up the next morning like, oh my gosh, this is so badass. Like, oh my gosh.
I love it. I love it. You debuted in December of 2023. What can you recall? And I'm sure you've probably tried to block most of it out. Everybody does. But what can you recall from that first match that still stands out in your head today?
Honestly, it's like you said, I feel like I kind of block out most of it because
Kind of repress it. Yeah.
I will say the electricity of my entrance, just the vibes and everything going out. I still remember that, which was the good part. And then the end of it, I remember like being in tears and being like, "Oh my god, I suck so bad. Like I'm terrible. I'm never gonna be a good wrestler." Like, just completely mortified. Like a year of training wasted. Like
That's fantastic. Oh my God, I'm bringing up so many bad memories and I feel so terrible, but what is something that you did in that debut match that would make current day Leela just cringe?
I mean, like so. I remember the beginning. I'm like, cool. I know my chain wrestling. I know I'm good with that. And to be perfectly honest, the rest of the match felt like a blur to me. Like I just
Right.
remember every hit I took just being like, where am I? What's going on? Like not being fully present in the ring, like at all. Like I could hear some of the fans shouting, and I remember hearing my opponent shouting, and then she would pick me up and hit me again. And I'm like, well, what the heck is going on right now? So, I mean, I think just that, just not having any type of, I think pretty much all of my training went out the door. Like I had zero spatial awareness, zero like wits about me. It was a rough time all around. So that like the cringiest part would even just be not even having my footing proper enough to just not be completely knocked over after
Oh,
like pretty much every single hit, just flying all over the place.
just a bumping fool that first match. I love it.
Someone would probably look at me and be like, does she have like zero body control? Like, oh my gosh.
The irony of a dancer with terrible footwork in the ring.
Oh,
That's
no.
which we're gonna give you a pass. You've gotten pretty good since then, so we're gonna give you a pass. Um, One thing that jumped out to me when I was, going through the research is you wrestled internationally pretty quick. One such instance stands out. How did the opportunity to wrestle in Finland come about?
Well, if you know Jake Omen, you know that he is Mr. International. And he did help all of his students have the opportunities that a lot of them got early on. I mean, even myself, Carter Kaufman, Elijah Eros going to OVW so quickly, and my rise to OVW Women's Champ is all because we were pushed. We were
Hmm.
pushed to do those things quicker because he didn't want us to waste, our formidable years just messing around on the indies. I mean, there's something to be said for having that level of camaraderie with your peers. But if you want to make it in wrestling, you have to make that decision early
Right.
on enough to not. He didn't want us to make it's like when someone has their children, they don't want you to make the same mistakes, and they want to like get you out of the nest, like fly bird fly.
I like it. I like it. How did that kind of teach you about yourself? Because obviously, wrestling internationally, like you said, you're pushed in the deep end. You're gonna sink. You're gonna swim, but you're gonna know pretty quickly if you can hang. What did wrestling internationally kind of teach you about yourself?
So I was fortunate enough to, although it was international, I did wrestle in a place where my opponents spoke English. So luckily
Ah,
there wasn't too much of a barrier there, which was awesome. And I myself, outside of wrestling, had traveled internationally. I even lived in China for a year when I was dancing. And so I think I was already like better prepared for a less daunting experience overall. However, still being so green and walking out into that ring, I was just thinking about pretty much all the same things I would think about in any other match that I would have, just making sure that everything that I was doing was safe and landed well. And even though we're obviously out there to kick some ass, we weren't truly crushing each other in a way that could be detrimental. So
right.
the women that I worked with that day were pretty great about that. It was a challenge though because it was meant to be two different singles matches that turned into a triple threat because someone could not make their flight, if I remember correctly. So that was kind of the biggest twist of the evening because we didn't know until right before. We were like, oh, okay, so we got to change a few things. This is going to be that was my so being so new to the business and being international and having it turn into a multi-woman match last minute, I was like, oh no. And then obviously after wrestling for X amount of time, you realize like, well, that's just kind of wrestling. Like things will change right
Exactly.
before you walk out the curtain. They're like, by the way, all right then.
Exactly, exactly. One thing I want to talk about is obviously the divine drama. You know, that's what you're known as. It's what you're known for. Where did that character kind of come from? Because talking to Leela here, she's just as sweet and as nice as can be. I don't know if I could say the same thing about the divine drama.
Well, it's all kind of in the same keel, right? I was always told that when you decide who you want to be in the ring, you're not just thinking about good or bad. You're thinking about who you are as a complete person,
Hmm.
right? So for me, the divine drama isn't just about, maybe if someone kicks out of a pin and I'm throwing a tantrum. Yes, that can be dramatic. That is somewhat divine drama. But what I'm more going for is in the theatrical sense, which is why part of my logo is the comedy and tragedy masks. Like
Hmm.
it's all the theatrics of it.
Right, right. What is the biggest piece of yourself you would say that exists in that character? Like how much of that is you just kind of cranked to 12?
I mean, I would say all of it.
Okay.
It's sometimes it's to the point where it can be a little bit challenging to separate the
Right.
two.
Right.
Ever since I started wrestling, it's been a huge identity shift, and I've had to make sure even to just like spend time doing normal things, if that makes any kind of sense. I'm like, oh yeah, I am kind of sort of like these two separate people, but at the same time, not really. Like as a performer, I've always just been very much larger than life,
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
And I think that that's just all of the parts of me that I don't allow myself to let out in my day-to-day life, you know?
Right. Right. You're just out here living the gimmick, brother. You were built for wrestling.
Out here living the gimmick, brother.
Living the gimmick, brother. um, if someone's been living under a rock, or they haven't come out of the house since COVID, how would you how would you tell them who is the divine drama? Like, who is your character, your gimmick? What can they expect?
It's the first thing that immediately comes to mind is that song. I believe it's Lady Gaga, and she's like, "I live for the applause, applause, applause." That's how I feel. I mean, that's just I have been a performer my entire life, and that's really what drew me into wrestling. I
Hmm.
do love the competitive nature of it. I've always been competitive. I grew up playing soccer, playing basketball, playing any type of sport that I could get my hands on. But also like I said, it's the theatrics of it all. I like to do something tough, but I like to make it look pretty, you know?
I love that. I can get behind that. Uh, as we pivot over, and I hate this is the part I don't want to talk about, but we have to. It's the injury. It's the collarbone. Obviously, you dealt with something that every athlete fears. You broke your collarbone. You busted your ass. You got back. You broke your collarbone again. Can you take us through that period and how that was for you? Not just physically, because obviously breaking your collarbone just sucks, but mentally, emotionally. Can you kind of take us through that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it literally just sucked. I remember after the first collarbone break happened, I was in complete denial about it until I was in searing pain on the floor because when I first got hit, I knew something was wrong, but it wasn't until I was behind the curtain. The EMTs were checking on me, and the funny thing is, they were checking on me because at the very beginning of my match, I got a bloody nose. So got hit in the nose. I was bleeding. Everyone's like, "You good to continue?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine." I
That's
think I
that
realized that.
badass I was telling you about.
But even then, that was the first time in a while since even my debut that like everything felt like a blur. I
Right.
just kind of like following my opponent around, trying to get him, trying to grab him, and you know, finally he hits his last move, and I hit the mat, and I was like, oh, this is for real bad though. So the EMTs were already kind of like around and like trying to clean me up from just like all the blood from my nose. And I was like, yeah, I think there's something wrong with my shoulder, or because I didn't really know how to name what it
Right.
was. They had me doing a bunch of things, and they were like, oh, we actually think you broke your collarbone. And I was like, no, I'm fine. It doesn't hurt that bad. And the minute they stepped away, I was like on the floor in tears, like could not control it. They were like, okay, we need to get you to the hospital. Obviously, like worst pain that I have ever felt in my life, hands down. Like
That's
every
intense.
little tiny movement or bump or anything was just it was awful.
My God, that's I hate to even ask you to relive this. Well, obviously you worked through that, you worked through the rehab, you get back in the ring, and then disaster strikes again. What was going through your mind after the second collarbone injury?
Very similar to the first. I mean, I just, even the first time it happened, I thought, oh my God, my life is over. And I did unfortunately make the mistake of coming back too soon. And the doctor
Right.
told me, a few months in, you'll feel great, you'll feel fine. You really need to resist the urge because I did come back only 4 months into the healing process when
Wow.
I should not have. Um, so I messed up and that was on me. And when it happened the second time, I was like, how could I be so dumb? Now I have to start all over
Oh,
again. Like,
right.
no one is going to remember who I am. No one is going to care about me. And I'm already a lot further up there in age, which I don't talk about age a lot. Such a taboo thing, but I'm definitely much more up there in age than a lot of the younger kiddos. Like I think people just automatically place me there just because I mean, look at me. Just but yeah, no, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be even further behind. Like there's no way I'm ever gonna be anything. And
Right.
it was hard. I mean, really the entire process, first time, second time, all of it was a lot for me. I'm also diagnosed with clinical depression, so that was already another leg up on the depressive episodes that I was like, this is going to be really awful.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, without going into like too much detail about the chaos of all of that, it like honestly breaking my collarbone completely changed the trajectory of my entire life. Like not to be dramatic or anything.
Not you. You would never. You would never.
Never.
I've talked to a lot of wrestlers, I've talked to a lot of athletes. They always say, obviously, the physical toll that it takes on you, the rehab, all of that stuff, coming back from a serious injury like you experienced, it's hard. But mentally, emotionally, you have to watch your peers, keep doing what they're doing while you're sitting on the sidelines. Obviously, you've talked about your struggle with mental health, and I'm very glad you're willing to talk about that because I think that's very, very important. Was there ever a point where the frustration and the fear kind of started to outweigh the optimism, especially during the second, comeback attempt?
Honestly, every single day. I So after the second time that it happened, I just kind of had to take a moment and reflect. And I also needed to still make a look because for me, I don't have any other type of job. Like wrestling is my job. Wrestling is
Right.
my income. And I was like, well, I have to do something, as I was healing. And so I got a job as a barista, which I actually kind of had always wanted to do since I was in high school. Like baristas are so cool. Yeah, like that's totally my vibe. And it's weird because I became, I don't want to say a completely different person, but it's just like I had my own little like life side quest where it just felt like I was in a completely different universe because I was doing the barista thing, doing that. And you're right, I still was kind of like watching some of the wrestling things that were going on, but I had to, in order to not fall into such a deep hole of depression, I had to
Hmm.
distance myself. Everyone's like, "Oh, you can still come to shows, you can still be around." I'm like, if I do that though, I'm gonna do something dumb, come again. And so
Right.
I couldn't, I was like, no, I can't, I have to. So for 6 months of that healing, I completely stayed away from it. Like I had nothing to do with wrestling. I wasn't doing any type of training outside of like my rehab. And like it was really, really hard. I didn't really know who I was at that time. And as I was like starting to heal and getting ready to kind of like come back to wrestling and I was getting excited about doing my new gear and getting my new boots and all of that is what brought me back to life because I was in such a dull state, like
Mm.
I could fight away the depression, but the dullness, I'd like to say like I don't know which is worse. I know for sure the depression was worse, but just being in that weird suspended state of reality is what it felt like.
Right. Right.
I look
Do
back
you?
at her and I'm like, oh, who's that girl? I don't know.
Well, and that kind of makes me wonder. Did that injury? Do you think that it's changed your relationship with wrestling at all?
100%. 100% it did. Like, no, I mean, because there is something to be said for respecting those who came before us. And, when you are coming up in the business, you have a lot of advice from like veterans at all the different shows you're going to, and you do your best to take it with a grain of salt, but you want to take it seriously and you never want to write anyone off or be disrespectful. And sometimes you can go too far. Sometimes
Right.
like I feel like unfortunately, a lot of the younger generations are going in the opposite direction where they're like being very disrespectful and like, oh, whatever, we're doing whatever we want. However, I think finding that middle ground was really important for me
Right.
because I was just trying so hard to do everything right
Hmm.
that I ended up watering myself down. Like I don't like even thinking about who I was for those first several matches that I had before I got injured, I was never like fully myself. And
Right.
so I just knew when I came back from being injured, like this is the time that I have and I just have to do everything that I can to like make it. Like if I'm actually going to do this, then I need to go balls to the walls. It wasn't that I wasn't trying hard enough before, but it was just that I was so busy listening to all these other different voices that weren't my
Right.
own
Right.
that it was just,
Too many cooks in the kitchen will do it every time.
yes, yes.
Every time. Well, let's talk about something positive that came out of this collarbone injury. Besides the badass comeback, while you were training to come back, you had a documentary filmed following you that you've put on YouTube since on Leela's YouTube, guys, and I'm going to link that down in the description. I watched it. I watched every episode. It's a multi-part documentary, just kind of chronicling what we've talked about. You know, you finding out about the collarbone and you working yourself back into ring shape, which isn't easy for anyone that might not know. Uh,
Yes.
there's no treadmill in the world that gets you ready to step back in that ring. Can you talk a little bit about how that documentary came about? Was that your idea? Were you approached with it?
Yes, it was. It was something that I had thought about even when it initially happened, but I was in such a terrible mental state that there was no way.
Yeah.
I think about it now and I'm like, ah, man, I wish I would have been in a better place to allow someone to follow me around during those darker times and truly follow the full journey. However, I am grateful for the later half that happened. It was something that I wanted to do for myself. So I actually reached out to several people in the coming months as I knew I was going to be coming back to training. And I happened to have a mutual dance friend who ended up knowing the fellow who ended up recording it. His name is Brandon Benz, and him and I had never met before, didn't know each other. And we chat on the phone for the first time, and he was just absolutely ecstatic to do this with me. And obviously, also being someone who was just living on a barista job and not having any other form of income or anything, I'm like, are you sure you're gonna just do this with me? This is just a thing that you want to do? Like, yeah, because he had like, I mean, even watching it back, I'm like, this is wild. Like he is such an amazing videographer, editor, all around, just whatever you would call that. He's amazing at what he does, and he does do that for life, for work.
Right.
And I was just lucky enough to make that connection at a time when he was like, well, I haven't really worked on a lot of documentaries, and this is something that I'd be very interested in. And him and I obviously got along great, which is what you would hope for someone who's following you around with a camera would be.
Seems mildly important. Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. The rest is history.
And are you happy? Obviously, you're very happy with the finished product and how it came across.
Oh yeah. Oh my. Yeah. He did an amazing job. I remember contacting him after I had watched the first episode and just being like, "Oh my god." I'm like, I know this is like my own story and everything, but watching it back, I was in tears myself. I was like, this is wild. And then when he completed that last episode, we watched it together and I was like, I could not stop myself. I was like, this is so amazing. Like this is just such a beautiful uh yeah. He obviously very, very pleased with the with the final outcome.
I love that. And like I said, guys, I cannot stress enough. I've watched it myself. I watched it as soon as it came out. I might have had a little heads up that it was coming, so I had been waiting for it. But I cannot stress enough. When you're done watching this episode, after you're finished, head over to Leela's YouTube page. We're gonna link it in the description and go check that out because it is must watch. Leela, you have been so gracious with your time. I'm going to let you out of here, but I have to ask you my last two questions. They're my favorite questions to ask everyone, and I'm going to pose them to you. The first of which being, what are you a fan of? This is obviously the Fans View podcast. Obviously, you're passionate about wrestling, but outside of pro wrestling, what are you a fan of?
What am I a fan? Oh, geez. Oh, gosh. I mean, I'm a fan of dance. I mean, I had dance was the first love of my life before I found wrestling. I love my beautiful little kitty cat, Finley. I wish he would come over here, but he's sleeping on the rug across from the camera. Staring him down now. He has become wrestling's favorite kitty cat, I think. He has now been to 6 events with me. He's the
Nice.
baby right now. So I don't know, maybe he'll be part of my entrance Sunday or something. We'll see.
I
I think he'll
love
be
it.
more famous than me, but
I
that's what I'm a fan of. I'm honestly a fan of being about all of my training, all of my wrestling. I really enjoy like supporting local businesses. I recently did a soap collaboration with a
oh,
local female-owned business called Sudsy Marie's, and that was super fun. I love going and like supporting like the farmers markets and all things local. Like I'm that type of girly.
very cool. Very, very cool. And last but not least, obviously, you're still a young woman in this business. We don't talk about age, but you've got a lot of miles left. Don't worry. Um, at this stage of your career and of your life, how do you define success?
It's hard. Not hard. That's challenging. That's the word I was looking for. Uh, I mean, honestly, I would say just getting to wake up every single day and do what I love. It's obviously not without its own challenges, you know, waking up every single day, never having a secure like paycheck, but I think we all choose our hard, right? Like we all
Right.
decide, okay, what is this type of life I want to live? And I knew already from a very young age that this was the challenge that I chose for my life. So I mean, I would say it's that, but at the end of the day, I can really sit back and I was just in Cincinnati for several days for some wrestling tapings. And I got back today, in fact, and I just sat back in my apartment and I looked around and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I just got to, you know, drive out to Cincinnati, be there for a few days, be around some of the coolest people and, you know, even gain more knowledge on wrestling, getting paid to be there. And then I get to come back, be with Finley, you know, like I'm not living the high life or anything, but like I have my cute little space and like this to me is success. Just being able to wake up every single day and do what I want to do.
Hell yeah. No better words have been spoken yet. So I love that answer. I always love asking that question because you always get a varied response. So I very much appreciate it. Leela, thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel like we have barely even scratched the surface. We're gonna have to do a part two. You're a busy lady, so it's gonna take some maneuvering.
The
But we're
scheduling, I know.
we're gonna get you back on for a part two, and we're gonna talk about. We didn't even touch OVW, so I mean, we've got a whole other podcast to do. Where can people get a hold of you? Where can they see you on social media? All that fun jazz.
So pretty much across all platforms, you can find me at Leela.Feist. And if anyone just simply types in LeelaFeist.com, you can find all of my stuff on my website. Super easy.
I love it. She makes it easy for us dumb wrestling fans. She won't say it, but I will. Well, Leela, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We're so glad you're back. We hope that collarbone stays strong. And like I said, we're gonna have you on for part two, no doubt. Guys, make sure go show Leela some love. Make sure to follow the podcast on social media, YouTube. You know, I don't have to tell you, it's 2026. You guys get it. Go show Leela some love. And most importantly, guys, at the end of the day, don't forget to call your mom. Beautiful.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're going to be joking me.